Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Golojuch Jr. My pronouns are he, him. I am president of Pride at Work Hawaii. Pride at Work is is a affinity group of constituency group of the national organization, national or AFL-CIO. We are also we also sit on the local Hawaii State AFL-CIO, which is the largest labor federation in the country. I do want to thank you for spending your part of your evening with us tonight. The goal is to get through these slides in 45 minutes and have time to have question and answers and get you all out here in under an hour. Um, so let's just hit right to it. You know who I am now. We're going to cover how a bill becomes a law, um, going through the timetables and where we are in the calendar right now. A quick overview of the participants guide, walking through the session. What the glossary, where you can find the glossary of legislative terms and acronyms are on the Capitol website, um, as well as an overview of how to use the Capitol online system, how to build an account, find your bills, as well as get all the wonderful stuff like getting hearing notices sent directly to you, how to track and create reports, and how to submit written testimony. Everything you see here is going to be hot linked directly to the public access rooms, which is known as PAR. They are a party paid for with your tax dollars. They are nonpartisan, uh, part of the Legislative Reference Bureau. They will help everybody and anybody. They do wonderful work there. They, if you have any questions after tonight's session and you can't get a hold of me, please give them a call. There's their hours and their phone number, or you can send them an email. Um, we're also going to cover effective written testimony, effective verbal testimony, go over lobbying and advocacy lobbying efforts, coalition building, how to support your bills outside of hearings with some advocacy tips, and end with the question and answers. So, up first is how a bill becomes a law. Um, so at the beginning of the session, bills are introduced. Every bill, and this is what you see in front of you is for the House chamber, and the exact same thing that happens on the House chamber happens on the Senate side as well. So bills are introduced, they all pass first reading, and then they get to referred to committees. Those committees have their hearings, and the committee report comes out. After that happens, it goes up for a second reading, which is when they vote, they pass it on the floor of the House. There on the House side, there will be some debate on that, sometimes on second reading. On the Senate side, usually none at all, unless except in extreme circumstances. Um, and then it goes out back to the committees if it has other referrals. And they have to go through all the different committee referrals they have and compete those processes for all the referrals. And once they've gone through all the committee referrals, if it hasn't died along the way, it goes for third reading. And that's the last and final reading in the originating chamber, where this is where you will hear more debate on the floor, usually, where all the House members or all the senators, depending which chamber you're looking at, have a chance to get up and say what they want to say. Um, After if it passes third reading, it goes through what's called crossover. It goes over to the other chamber, and the whole process repeats again for the non-originating chamber. So once it's done with that, it comes out. If it comes out of the non-originating chamber as it came out of the originating chamber, say that three times fast, um, then it automatically will then go up to the governor for the governors to review and decide if they're going to sign it into law or not. Um, if it comes out in a different form, that means there's been they made any changes, then the originating chamber will look at the changes, decide if they agree with them or not. If they agree with them, it goes back for a final reading on the originating chamber floor where they will vote yet again. And then if it passes, then it goes up to the governor for the governor to review. If they disagree, this brings us to conference, and the bill goes to the conference, and that's where things get really wild. And some people refer to it as conferences where good bills go to die. So uh, it becomes a lot more tactical, and it's actually not as transparent as the rest of this process is, because the legislators have um, exempted themselves from the Sunshine Law when it comes to for most of the stuff here. So The legislative timetable. So this is what you'll find this on the Capitol website. We are now here. We are now looking at um, we are at the beginning of the mandatory 5-day recess that is put into the calendar to allow legislators originally to be able to go back to their home islands, um, and be able to talk to their constituents to find out how they feel about the bills that are moving forward, what they feel about it, and so then they can come back and head into final decking. Um, Now it's for the most part, it's just hearings during this period of time. So um, and then we head into next week and you see in their first decking, and that is when those bills that made it through first lateral, that's what they call it, when they've made it to their final hearing, the committee hearings and their referrals. We're in the middle of first that period right now. Last Friday was first lateral, that if your bill was not in the last committee, it died. So everybody's trying to get their bills that are made it to that point heard between now and next week. Has to be heard and out of the final committee by next week, Thursday, for or I think Friday, maybe. I forget. To be final decking, which means that they've passed that passing third reading. Um, Ready to go to third reading and pass out of the House or the Senate. And then you'll see there first week in March, first crossover. The bills have to be voted on by the originating committee and out of past the third reading and over to the non-originating chamber. You'll see their substantive verso cutoffs. That means anything like this, a concurrent resolution or anything that is not ceremony in nature. So if you want the House or the Senate to take a position on something, you have to have those. Those have to be introduced by the electeds by then. And then um, you see that budget bills actually have a different deadline, and they have to be decked by Monday, March 10th. And then the whole process that seemed like it was going really fast through January and February speeds up even more as we go from March to the end of April, because not only do we have everything that took place in those 2.5 2 months, you now have what do you call it? Conference that takes place during this period. Plus, and you all the holidays and the mandatory recess days. And again, just means they don't go into session and can't vote anything on the floor, but doesn't mean they're not working. The only time they're not working during the week is when you see holidays like Prince Cohio Day and Good Friday during this period. Um, so that's the legislative calendar in a nutshell. There is a participant's guide that will walk you through the session that will go into much greater depth than what we just did. Um, and you'll be able to look at the legislative calendar. Up next, we're going to quickly go over the glossary where you can find that link will take you to the glossary of legislative terms. And then next, we're going to cover using the Capitol online system. So you click that link, it's going to take you here, and this is where you're going to find, if you don't like crossover, uh, first lateral, second lateral, those wonderful little terms that people use that I've been doing this for 25 years off and on, well, mostly on. And so some of these things become second nature to you. But if you hear a word you don't understand, this is where you can go and look it up. Synodia is Latin for uh, last day. So it's the adjournment of session, and that's what everybody in the big square buildings looking towards. And us advocates by the end of April, we're looking to that forward to that too, just to get the session done with. Um, you'll also find all the acronyms because they're state speak, as there were, and the people can actually will just use acronyms to cover everything. SB Senate Bill, HB Senate House Bill, SD Senate Draft, HD House Draft, and then you have CD, which is Conference Draft. And those are basically the acronyms you're going to need to know outside of the committee here on acronyms. And they try not to change those, even when they change the names of committees, but sometimes they do, and it makes the whole thing so much fun. If you haven't already done so, you're going to want to go in and create yourself a account. And I'm going to tell you something that I know may sound funny, but make sure when you go to create the account that you use an email address that you actually have access to. Um, I've heard people, oh, I'm using my friend's email account. You always have access to it. No, that's not going to help you when hearing notices come in and you're not going to know that they're coming. They've come in. So when you go in there, when you get to the Capitol website, it's up there in the right-hand corner, the register, click on that. The screen will pop up. You put in your name, how you want it to appear when they call out testimony. You do not have to use your legal name. You can use an nom de plume or nickname or whatever you want to put in there. If you're representing an organization, you're going to want to go ahead and put that in there so it automatically fills in for you. A phone number is not required, but you can give that to them. Again, here's the email. This is the email address, like I said, this is the email address that's going to be used to create your account that you're going to use to sign in, and the email account that you want to have access to so you can get those hearing notices. And then verify the email address, and then you create your own password. And and you'll have an account. Once you have your account, there's reports and lists. And this is where you go to help you find the bills. You see here on your screen, you'll see the House bills introduced for this session, Senate bills introduced for this session, as well as the different resolutions and other things. You can go in and find measure. If you want to know what your elected officials have introduced, you can find those, pick that by measures by introducer or measures by package. If you want to know what the Keiki Caucus has introduced, or the Equality Caucus, or the Women's Caucus, what their packages look like, or if you want to see what the governor's package or the judiciary, you can do that as well to help you find those bills. But if you're just looking to find bills that are interest of you, go to the House bills, search when you pop open that list. You're going to want to use you'll get something like this in front of you, and this is the equality package from 2024. And but on the House ones, you pick keywords that will resonate with what you're looking for. Like when I'm looking for stuff for the LGBTQI plus community, I will use sex, sexual orientation, gender identity. You do want to use transgender. Do not just do trans, because you'll get transmissions, you'll get transfers, and all those other wonderful things. So spell out transgender if you're looking for anything like that. And this will help you gather those bills if that's what you're looking to do to make your own list. So and then here, when you see these lists, you see here, you're going to have the bill number, the title, a limited description, its current status, who the introducers are, and then what referrals it's looking at, and if it happens to have a companion bill. And you'll see all those in that list. And you can save that list as a PDF. You can export it into Excel if you want to go in and move data around. But for the most part, I intend to use these as for my tracking for all the organizations I oversee their legislative programs for, because it's just easier. So you know what your bill number is, you found it, you want to see where it's at. So if you clicked on the bill number in that last list, it will pop you over to this site. And this is what the bill description looks like. So this one, it was relating to health, the gender affirming healthcare bill with regards to gender affirming care from last session. You see, again, the measure title, report title, the description, the companion. Again, you have all that other information. And if you look under introducers, you see everybody's names in caps. That means something. That means that everybody in that signed onto this bill, that if Representative Capella had not introduced it, they would have introduced it themselves. You'll see in other ones where only the first letter of the last names, it means they support the bill, but not as much as these people do. That they do support the bill, but they would not have introduced the bill if nobody else had. When you get to that page, you see that where the bill was. In this case, the bill passed the House, was transferred over to the Senate, and did not get past first reading. in 2024. So, um, but also here, if you look over there on the right-hand side, you'll see all versions of the measure. So you can go over and you can look at the original one, what it looked like when it came out with HD1, what it looked like with HD2. If you don't feel like reading those, the best thing to do is look at the committee reports. And you start off with the smallest number first, because that's the committee report that came out after its first hearing. And you can see how they amended it, because it came out with an HD1. It had two other hearings. Yeah. Um, and and you can see how they amended it when it came out of the second hearing, and then out of the third hearing, there were no amendments. You can go back and read all the testimony for those bills. And if you want to see what the agendas are also there. And this all stays here in perpetuity. So in case you forget something if you're working on a bill, because a new idea that hits the big square building averages 7 years from introduction to it actually passing is the average. Sometimes things get introduced first year and they fly right through. That's few and far between. So you know where to get the bills, how to see where they're at, what they're doing. So you want to participate. This is going to be on your front page of the Capitol website. If you want to submit testimony, you got a hearing notice and you just want to go in and hit submit testimony, you can log in and punch in the bill number, and it would be like HB 456. And there are no spaces when you do that, and it will take you to the page. Should there not be a hearing for that, you cannot submit testimony. If you want to create your own tracker, my thing is I encourage you to have your measure tracking tab open and have another tab open for hearing notifications. And the reason for that is that once you've found all your bills, or if you have that list that you've created or that you're pulling from, you're going to want to just copy and paste the bill number into hearing notification, and at the same time, after you've created your measure tracker. So you do both at the same time. You cannot, the system isn't set up that if you put it in one, it automatically goes into the other. It'd be nice if it did, but this is where we're at. So hearing notifications, you put the bill numbers there, and you will automatically get emailed when a bill has a hearing that comes up. The measure tracking is you're creating your own list of bills that you're following, whether you make that public or not, or you share that amongst your friends in private groups. That's up to you. That information, nobody's gathering that information on the back end, to my knowledge, and because once you've submitted testimony, it's public knowledge that you're following that bill. So there's yeah, I haven't heard of any cases of anybody saying, oh, my measure tracker was leaked. And like I said, I've been doing this for way too long. So you have your measure tracker going, you have your hearing notices all set, and you get a hearing notice, and it's time to submit testimony. So you click the submit testimony button, and this screen will pop up. You enter the bill number, or you can go directly from the hearing notice as well. It will take you right through the number. You'll get the list of bills, and you see your bill number. You click on that, it'll take you directly to the page that we were at earlier, where it gave you all the description. And there's a submit testimony button on there. You click that, and it will bring you to here. So there's multiple ways to get to be able to submit testimony. So where you have your bill number, somebody calls you, or you see something online that says, oh, there's this bill, you're going to want to testify on it. Go in there, log in, hit the submit testimony button from the participate tab, get to this page, punch in your bill number, and hit continue. And this is what it looks like without all the wonderful stuff from the public access room. When you go to punch in that number. Once you punch in that number, once you punch in that number, it will bring you up to a screen that will ask you the name of the person, and if your name should automatically populate it in there. If you want to change your name for whatever reason, you can put another name in there. Just remember, you can only submit one piece of testimony per email account. So you can't go in and put in testimony for all your friends under the same account. And then so you're going to make sure your name is there. You're going to, the organization is not automatically populated anymore. It used to do that. So if you are doing an organization, you want to make sure your organization's there. It's going to ask you, are you submitting on behalf of an individual or organization? If you click the organization, there has to be something in the organization field. Just makes sense, I guess. Then you're going to want to pick support, oppose, or comments only. Support, if you support the bill, oppose. Of course, if you oppose the bill, and comments only is if you just want to pontificate on the bill. Usually that you see that from departments when they don't want to go against the bill, but they do want to have their input. In some cases, you'll see that from lobbyists. They do that, and it's basically we're not thrilled with this bill, so we're not supporting it, but we're not totally. We really don't like the bill, but we don't hate it enough to be in opposition to it publicly. That's a little insider stuff there. And then once you do that, you're gonna have two ways of submitting testimony. If you have a document, you can upload that, or you can copy and paste from a Word document or any other what do you call it? Any other Word program, and copy and paste and drop it in there. And why I say that, I'll explain a little bit later. And then, so what if you selected your document or selected whatever however you want. If you just want to type in, I support this bill, please pass it, there's a text box in there. You can do that. And then you hit submit. Once you do that, you'll be taken back to this screen, and over on the right-hand side where it says your testimony, you'll see a green box. If you're supporting it, you'll see thumbs up. If you're not supporting it, your thumbs down, or the pencil and paper means you only have comments. It will then, when you go to submit your testimony, I forgot, you needed to let them know if you were written only, written in person, or written via Zoom. If there's a chance that you're not going to be there, I usually hit written via Zoom. So I always have access to that Zoom link should something come up and I can't make it from Makakilo into town. And because this is the page you're going to want to come to be when your hearing comes up on that day, to grab that Zoom link to let you into the room. So yeah, if you just want to do written only, that's fine. But if you want to be able to get up in front of the committee and give them your verbal testimony, and you're not sure you're gonna be able to make it, go ahead and just hit Zoom. If something comes up and you can't make it, no harm, no foul. So don't worry about that. The big thing is just making sure you're getting your testimony in. So effective written testimony. The reason I brought up the Word programs is please do use one. And the reason I say that is because I want you to use a spell check and a grammar check, because you want to put your best foot forward. Do not put false information into your written testimony, because your opposition is probably going to do that. You don't want to lower yourself to their level. Do not, again, no false information. Don't make things up. Don't put any personal contact information in your written testimony, because like I said earlier, it's going to remain there in perpetuity. So if you put your email address, your home phone number, your cell number, that world's going to have access to that, and somebody can use that. Not saying they will, but I do not encourage using your cell phone numbers. If you have a public email address, you can definitely put that in there for your organization or the business, or however you want people to get in contact with you. And if you want people to get in contact with your organization and you want people to know how to get a hold of you, it's great to put that email address in your public written testimony. And we'll talk about that a little bit more about that later. Written testimony. The best thing is how you make sure you're getting your point across. Making sure if you're supporting the bill, put that in big bold letters. Don't make the staffer or the legislator look for guess at what your point, guess if you're supporting or opposing it, especially if you're using something on a Word document. PDF is what when I upload a document is what I go to. Um, but you can do Word, PDF, RFT. Yeah, no JPEGs, no PNGs, when you're uploading your document. And bullet points are great. Long paragraphs are not, because especially if you are one of 300 pieces of written testimony on a bill, um, you want them to be able to look at it, get their point, look at and see if you have bullet points, something like that. If you're using paragraphs, maybe you bold something in the paragraph. If you have a longer testimony, giving it headers so they know what they're looking at quickly. Um, how long is too long? If you're not the subject matter expert, anything over a page and a half is too long from personal experience. You should be able to get your point across in one page unless you're using a really large font, and then go for it. So, and here, this is the written testimony. If you want to include reports, you want to include science data, you want to give them, you can hot link into your things that they can click through. And remember, written testimony is not just for the legislators, it's also for the general public. So if you want them to be able to and you cite a study and you want them to be able to get access to the study, maybe you don't, the study's 900 pages, but it's on a URL and you can just do that. Did anybody have a question while I'm going through that? No. Okay. So yeah, because like I said, the testimony is not only just for the legislators, it's for the general public, especially those sitting in on the bill. And you can use that as a chance to educate the general public as well. There's again, that link takes you to the PAR, where they go through the bare basics on written testimony. Again, don't curse in your written testimony unless you really want to. Spelling and grammar are your friends, and I do encourage you to use those spell checks and grammar checks. Effective verbal testimony. Do tell a personal story. Do highlight a piece of your testimony, or give them the high points of what your written testimony is on if you want to. Please do not read your written testimony into the record. In some cases, your verbal testimony, you're only going to have a minute. Some cases 2, some 3. Some legislators will cut you off if you start reading your testimony and say, thank you, we've already got that. Is there anything you want to highlight? I mentioned time limits. When the agenda comes out and you get the hearing notice at the bottom of the agenda, they will say how much time. They will let you know if there's a time limit. And like I said, it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Or the legislator, the chair of the committee, can always implement that at the beginning or anywhere along the hearing process should they start going over time. So if you already know your time limit, don't go over it, because you're just going to irritate the legislator. And you going over your time may mean somebody else may not be able to get up there and give their verbal testimony as well. So, so just be respectful of their time and everybody else's time if there are time limits on your verbal testimony. And again, here, don't make threats, don't curse, because you do want to put your best foot forward when you're advocating for whatever issue you are looking at. So, effective advocacy and lobbying. I borrowed these from Blake Oshiro, who is over at Capital Consultants. He used to be majority leader when he was in the House. He was the deputy chief of staff under Abercrombie, and then he was chief policy advisor for Josh Green, Governor Green. So here we go. If you are not being paid, you don't need to worry about, if you're not being paid to go testify or get other people to go testify, do you not need to worry about filing with the Ethics Commission. If you are being paid in any way, shape, or form, you're going to want to make sure that you talk to ethics. When you hit, there are certain things that you have to, if you hit excess of 5 minutes, 5 hours in any month, and that 5 hours counts sitting there waiting for your bill to come up. Excess of 10 hours in any calendar year, or if you spend more than $1,000 of your money or any other person's money in lobbying efforts. And that includes buying ads, paying for things to pop up on Facebook or any other social media platforms. Um, yeah, so lobbying as a city and law as a citizen lobbyist, where I believe most of you are, um, you don't need to worry about it. If you are being paid, you're going to want to talk to your employer, or if you're a contractor, talk to the person you've done the contract for, and making sure that you are that you are following the law and registered with the Ethics Commission. Restrictions and administration. Okay, so here are the restrictions. You can read all that. Again, this is you're a paid lobbyist, or even as a citizen lobbyist, you cannot do gifts. Um, Gifts are out of any kind. Um, Lei is considered not a gift, it's an act of aloha. It's part of our culture. Um, do not have them made out of money. Do not go out and spend $300 on a lei, because that would be deemed excessive. So again, most of us don't have that kind of money, especially as a citizen activist and lobbyist. But if again, just to be aware of this stuff, and you're gonna, if you can't bring in a box of manapua anymore, that is considered a gift. It's fall. If you're friends with somebody that works in an office and you bring them a manapua because it's lunchtime and you're having lunch with them, that is, you have an existing relationship with them. Um, but anything that could be inferred as something tried to influence the legislator or their employees in the how they do their job. But if you're out to lunch with somebody and you buy them a manapua and you're friends prior to them getting this job, then that is usually okay. But again, I always err on the side of caution and nothing. Um, what influences policy decisions? This is so at the very top of this list, you have the person's that legislators self, their values, if they're data driven, what are kind of information. The people, then it goes down to the people closest to them. Is it their staff, their family members, their fellow colleagues? And then you have the voters and the constituents reaching out. Every elected official always has reelection on their mind, so contentious issues can move them from one column to the other. Although I do want to point out that no elected official in the last 20 years, 25 years has ever been voted out of office for supporting a queer bill. Some have been voted out of office for opposing queer bills, but that's another story for another time. Organizations. So um the whole legislative body is the whole leadership chairs, the chairs committee, the body that they sit in, um, can influence how they make their decisions. How media frames an issue can impact them. The other what the other side or the other chamber is saying, or what the executive branch, the judicial branch is saying, can impact them. And lobbyists. As citizen lobbyists, you are actually, especially if you live in that legislator's district, you go up on the list. If you're a lobbyist, paid lobbyist, you supposedly go down on the list, and you're usually, in most cases, usually not the ones supposedly not supposed to be the ones that help be the deciding factor when it comes to how an elected official votes. So, how do you lobby? Best way, in person. Testimony at hearings, face-to-face meetings, telephone calls is considered in person, or Zoom calls. Other in-person way of lobbying is if you see them out and about. If you're at the farmers market and you know them and they know you, that that is an opportunity to engage them, but with understanding, keeping uh respecting their time. And if they're with their family, yes, they are public servants, but also they're people too, and they do need family time, just as we all do. The other way is written testimony, letters, emails, petitions, and social media. When it comes to testimony and how to influence them, original written testimony is always at the top of the list. Uh, Anything else, if you have copy and paste testimony, that goes down on the list. Petitions are even further down on the list when you're looking at your written testimony and how to engage. Um, the only time petitions really have an impact is if you have a petition in that legislator's district, and all the signers you are confirmed to be voters or residents in the district, and you have a large number. Um, for statewide things, you're going to want thousands of signatures, and you're going to want to be able to prove that, at least have their zip code tied to their name for petitions to have any kind of effect. Otherwise, there's better ways to spend your time and energy when lobbying. And then again, social media. Um, it is taking, so in some cases, becoming more influential than it actually should be because of the bots that are out there and the misinformation that comes out of social media. So just be aware of that. That can play a role, but ideally it doesn't, unless, especially, it can be overcome by the in-person and facts and figures, as long as you have a logical legislator in front of you. Um, know the process. We already went over the process on how to be engaged and how the bill becomes a law. So you're going to want to go back, and if there's any questions, go over those things. You're going to, like I said, you're going to have access to these slides. There'll be a QR code at the end, where you, as well as a bit.ly, and we'll have that also available online for people to download to get access. Know the people, know who you're talking to, know the legislators. It helps if you like politics, better if you like politicians. I don't necessarily. Anyways, but yeah, if you want to be engaged, you're gonna want to at least be like politics, at least to some degree. You don't have to love it, you don't have to breathe it and bathe in it like some of us do, but um and if you're trying to get a politician, it's good that you don't absolutely abhor the person you're talking to try to get them to do something. If you do, maybe that you're not the right person to advocate for your issue with that politician, and find somebody else that can, from your group or your coalition, that can go meet with them. Because yeah, if they know you don't like them, or you know they don't like you, you're really not going to get very far, because again, um it's all about creating relationships. Um, remember, you're asking somebody who does not actually have to help you to do something that you want done. So keep a positive mind frame when you're meeting with them. Um, and smile if you're on the phone. Um, it does make a difference. You can hear it in the voice when somebody's smiling and when they're not. Um, remember that politics is personal, and in Hawaii, all things are political except politics, and that's very personal. To um, you hear people say, "Oh, I don't do politics," but then 2 minutes later, they're talking about, if a gay couple talking about getting married. They got married because of politics, or the woman's right to vote, very political, and a long struggle to make that happen. So everything sooner or later will come back to politics when we're talking about civil rights and advocating for justice. Of course, well, it's all political. Um, you're going to want to build relationship with lawmakers. Um, again, there are some lawmakers that are never going to like you, never support you, and you just move on. But everybody else, you want to get to know the lawmakers, and you're going to want to get to know their staff. You do not, if you go into the office and you look through the office manager and you see the lawmaker there, that is a big no-no, because you're going to acknowledge the office manager, because that office manager is the lawmaker's right-hand person, and they can make or break your bill. Um, because the staff has direct access to the lawmaker 99% more time than you do. And if you're rude to them, they will pass that along. Lawmakers will pay attention to you if you are in there and you are rude to the staff. Or if they hear you're rude to somebody else's staff, they will pay attention to that. And that can impact their decisions if they're going to support your issue or not. Again, we're talking about building relationships. Look for common interests. They like volleyball, you like volleyball. If you do not, again, you don't have to, do not force it. Um, uh, legislators are more likely to meet again with you and listen to your views if they know who you are and have a friendly feeling towards you. So if you give them stink eye every time you see them, they're less likely to set up a meeting with you. Um, and the same thing goes with the staff. You don't have to be best buds, but I do want you to remember, you're going to want to remember the office manager's name and the staff inside the office, because uh, you don't know exactly how they feel on a bill unless you've seen them at an opposition protest. They could be one of your biggest advocates, but just they've chosen not to take an aside, they because of everybody they have to deal with in that legislator's office and who comes through there day after day. Um, when you go to meet with them, you see them, make sure you have your elevator pitch ready to go, and that you know what you want them, you know what you're going to tell them, what you're going to tell them, you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. And that's how it is. You let them know, be clear about your asks, uh, be polite. Um, if you're going in there saying you just want to educate them on something, that's fine. They're they're probably going to be like, why, if you're going to educate them on something that it's not even before them this session, they're probably going to cut the meeting short because there are other people that are going to want to meet with them that on things that they're hearing the next day or later that afternoon. Um, and you're going to want to start building these relationships, as well as keeping these lines of communication open over the session, outside of session, the other 8 months out of the year. Um, and you're always trying to help make the politician's job easier, uh, make the information simple, bring in other groups that agree with you. Don't make the politician do the work. Well, don't say, well, if you Google that, you're asking them to do something for you. You basically want to spoon feed them all the information so they have it there. And so you can move quickly. Um, when you go in, don't do all the talking. You're having a conversation. If you just get in there, you start spout facts and figures at them, they're going to shut down. The staffers are not going to shut down, um, because you want to ask them questions about the issue if they have any questions, or after you've told them what you told them, make sure that if they have any other questions, and because you're having a conversation, this isn't necessarily a TED talk, unlike tonight. Um, be prepared to be able to read the signals. If they cross their arms, they look at their watch. Um, if they tell you you only have 15 minutes, realize you only have 15 minutes. Then don't when you realize you're coming to the end, start to wrap up. Make sure you reiterate whatever your ask was. There's always time for follow-up, sending information via email. Um, if you're going to go meet with them in person, it's good to have a leave behind piece, a one pager, a quarter page, something that they have to remind them of your visit. Um, and their questions will usually tell you how they're feeling towards the issue or where they're leading towards. And they may or may not, and do not expect to automatically get a yes or no out of an elected unless you already have a built-in relationship with them, or you pretty much know where they are on the issue, because they probably will not give you an answer at that meeting. And here comes the biggie. Be prepared to make compromises. Uh, People are like, when it came to marriage equality, our compromise was civil unions. And so, and even when we did civil unions, there was a compromise in the bill. Uh, Basically, it just reiterated what was in the First Amendment, but again, it was a compromise. The opposition thought they got something. We got what we actually wanted in the civil unions, and the same thing when marriage equality passed. Um, in other cases, you may not get 100. You very very rarely do you get 100% of what you're looking for when you go in to do a bill. Uh, it's the art of the compromise when you're looking at legislation, and people are like, oh, you can't compromise on civil rights. You compromise on how it's implemented, what you do, like with the Hate Crimes Act. We passed that in 2001, and they didn't have gender identity or expression in the original law. We had to take that as a hit on the chin and accept it, but then we came back and picked it up a couple years later. Um, and now it is standard across the board on all of our non-discrimination policies here in the state. Um, so yeah, there are going to be times you're not going to get 100% of what you want, but what's better, 100% of nothing or 80% of what you're looking for? So again, do not forget the staff. Remember their names. They have eyes and ears, and they are the doorkeepers, the bosses. So they're bosses. It's great if you know their names. You're going to want to know their names because when you walk in, you're like, and say, hi, I'd like to make them, if it's possible, to set up a meeting. The fact that you remember their name, they will remember that because I can tell you, I have so many office managers that have said they've just been looked right through by people that are good friends with the legislator. Everybody who says they're really good friends with all the legislators, not true. It's very rarely the case. There are very few people that are friends or great acquaintances with every member that's in the big square building. And yeah, so be nice to the staff because it's a good thing. Okay, really quick. I'm gonna go through the rest of this really quick. Coalition building. Um, don't go it alone. Find support, friends, like-minded organizations, other advocates, general outreach, social media, where you can find these people, where to find leads. Best thing is go back to the other bills that you are interested in, and you go through the testimony and mine that for names and email addresses. So like if you want people to you want to join other coalitions, your organizations put your email addresses in there and people will mine that for that purpose. When you go to meetings and talk to people about politics, that's the other way. When you're building your coalition for whatever you're doing, does it need to be formal, informal? You figure out what best makes the example best works for you. Set realistic expectations, provide talking points, like we talked about the leave behind, to help in your leave behind and also to help people write testimony. But don't give everybody, oh, here, copy and paste testimony. Like I said, that's down on the thing. 2 original sentences is much better than if you have 50 pieces of 2-sentence original testimony is better than 500 of the same thing over and over. Remember, your bill may not be the top priority of everybody else that's supporting you or in your coalition. People, organizations, positions can change during the session and after session. Keep in mind an open mind to different ideas and perspectives. And if you join a coalition and an organization helps you out, you know what? Turn around and return the favor. I can't tell you the number of times that I've gone out of my way to help people and then with their things, and I've come back and asked them for a small favor and join, and they've said no. So it makes me less willing to reach out and help them next time they come back asking. But if you automatically do it without them having to ask, they will more than likely help you even if it's something that's may not in their wheelhouse or just something that they're really not interested in. Again, there's more advocacy links there, tips from the PAR. Legislative resources. There's the commission bill tracker, so you don't have to build your own. The Hawaii State AFL-CIO has their own bill tracker. Public access room information again. Other ways to advocate. Attend a protest. If you feel safe doing it. Can't find one, create your own. Write a letter to the editor or op-ed because this has helps create the media spin and making sure you have you're getting your point across. Contact your senator and representatives, ask them to support your favorite bills. Remember, if you don't have that Capitol website, create one. Share what you learned tonight with 3 friends. Other ways to advocate. We need queer voices everywhere. While I do sit on the Hawaii State LGBTQ plus commission, there are other commissions and state advisory boards. The unwritten deadline is March 8th to apply. Visit the board commission, find out what's available. You give them a call tomorrow to see what openings there are. The time commitment is anywhere between 4 and 10 hours a month. Remind our allies that ally is a verb. And if you are an ally, this is your reminder, ally is a verb. Support businesses that support us and not just during Pride Month. Oh, okay. And make sure all your friends are registered to vote. and that take time for yourself because self-care, and remember self-care. This is a sprint, not a marathon. If you want to run for office and you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community, Victory has a leadership fellowship that they offering. They are looking for uh, leaders of color and or transgender, non-binary, or gender non-conforming individuals. The deadline to apply for that is March 10th. If you need a letter of recommendation and you and I don't really know each other, let's get to know each other so I can write you that letter of recommendation. Um, like I said, applications are March 10th, due by March 10th, and there's more information on that one. If you're on Oahu, attend your neighborhood board meetings. Um, and that because that's where you can actually get to know your legislators because they all either show up or send a staffer for your area. If you don't like what you're kind of hearing out of your neighborhood board, run to be a neighborhood board member. Tomorrow is the deadline, 4:30 p.m. to do it online. It needs to be postmarked by tomorrow for the snail mail. And remember to vote, and that's for Oahu. Okay, now question and answers. We have 10 minutes since given what we started. So, and again, like I said, there's the bit.ly. Um, if you have any questions, go ahead and just mute yourself. Let me see. Or if you want to raise your hands, I know they have the participant list up. If you have any questions, anything I didn't understand, want to know more about, go right ahead. Don't be shy. I don't believe there's anything as a stupid question. I may give a stupid answer, but um, oh, you're welcome. Oh, great to hear that. We are having a Pride at Work. We are where the labor community, labor and LGBTQI uh fight comes together. We are having we do a monthly Pauhana. It's tomorrow night. It's always the third Friday of the month at Chico's Tavern. We provide the poo-poos. So if you want to be there, come on over. Um,
That's this Friday, Michael, like tomorrow?
like tomorrow. Because I love doing Pride at Work stuff. I decided to do it back to back
All the time.
all the time.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Does all of these things you're saying in relation to working with the legislature, similar application to working with, say, city council?
Yes, the city council has the same three hearing process. Um, Unfortunately for if you're Honolulu City Council, they do not have the same hearing notice system that the state has. So you do tend to do you either get all the hearing notices or none of them, and then you have to go through each one. So
And
yeah,
the city council's year round,
yes,
correct? Okay. So for the legislature, it's like pay attention now, because Fast and Furious, the second half, city council year round.
yes, and yeah. So well, the city council doesn't do much when it comes to queer stuff. We're working on changing that with some other stuff that they're doing, and we're gonna need to do there. But they're the ones that impact your life on a more to day-to-day operations, sewage, water, buses, fun stuff like that. Your roads. So yeah. And get to know your legislators. You want them to be able to know you on a first name basis. They want to be able if you're out and about. Do I have any other slides? Oh yeah. Um, if you like what you heard about Pride at Work, this is some of the things. Join our email list. It doesn't make you an automatic member. This is you'll get our meeting notices. We do not hit you with a lot of hearing stuff. We'll pick one bill, and right now it's the Shield law that will send out requests for testimony on that. But other things, just to remind, if we have an event coming up, I do want you all that are still with us, put on March 8th on your calendar if you're on Oahu. Um, there's going to be an event at the Capitol for International Women's Day. It's being put on by Women in Labor, labor being union, as I had to tell somebody. And they're like, if a woman's in labor, how can they be put on an event? And I was like, okay. So, so yeah, so it'll be an opportunity to come out and meet people face to face. There will be tabling opportunities. We'll have a table there. Um, how do you find out about when protesting and sign waving events are? I put them up on our social media things when I find them out about them. I know there's one this Saturday in Waikiki. It's being put on by Refuse Fascism Honolulu. Starts at 4 o'clock with the gathering by the zoo. They go from the 4 to 5, I think. I put those stuff out when I can, when people find us, let us know about. Um, there's another one at the end of March that they're putting together. It's going to be a larger march. Um, that's all I can say on that one because I've been sworn to secrecy on the rest of it. Just to be on the lookout for that. It's gonna actually be a march. Um, and find the other thing is reaching out and finding the other different organizations like Fuse Fascism, who else out there? Indivisible Hawaii. Following the commission will also be putting stuff out about these things to help people advocate for their rights. Who else out there? Um, the funny thing is that 2013 we had, I want to say, like 10, maybe 12 different LGBTQIA orgs in the state that were actually doing things, and we were down to just the Stonewall Caucus and Pride at Work until the commission came online at the Capitol. So we're starting to see other groups come springing up, and that's great. Um, if you don't see a march or you don't see something that you want to happen, do it yourself. That's how Women's March started, with an idea. Uh, Teresa, Teresa from Maui, from Hana, put it up. How do you all feel about marching on Washington? And she went to bed with a couple of likes, and she woke up with 5,000 new friends and an idea. So, and because if you think about something, if there's something that you're interested in, you want to advocate for, and you want to, and it has, with everybody's busy schedules, there's time, not everybody's going to be able to make everything, and nor should you be expected to. Um, do not feel like you're failing by not showing up at something when you see being advertised. You make what you can. You do not want to, again, this is a marathon, not a sprint. You don't need to do everything. Um, but yeah, when you reach out to those other organizations like AAU, AAUP, AAUW, yeah, they have their own. You get on their list, and they'll let you know when their bills are coming up. Um, Hawaii Kids Can Speak. They have their own thing. They will even text you out. They have that kind of fancy stuff. Unfortunately, us here at Pride at Work, we're scrappy. Um, and let's see. There's the Stonewall Caucus. They also send out stuff. Um, Reach out and look at the different organizations around the issues that matter to you. Like there's HAPA. There's also Sierra Club when it comes to environmental issues. Blue Wave. They all have some type of legislative program that will send you something to let you know if they're when it comes to ledge, and also when they are doing a march. So again, if you didn't get it, there's the thing for the slides. You can download that. Again, I'm going to once we're done here tonight, I'm going to get this recording up, and also have the link to the slides, so you can go back and do some homework if you need to look at anything and since the system is live, it's great to go in, and when you get a hearing notice on one of your bills, look at the hearing notice and see what else is on that hearing notice. Maybe there's something being heard that you didn't hear about that really. And again, you don't have to write a dissertation, 3 sentences. I support this bill. I oppose this bill. This sounds horrible. Um, Use your voice. It's yours. We have one of the most accessible capital legislative processes in the country. Um, in some states, you have to register to be able to testify, and there's a cutoff. And if you're not registered and they don't have you in their system even before the legislative process begins, you can't you can't testify unless you go up and show up in person, and then there's a whole other process. So we actually, with now, the only good thing to come out of the COVID thing is that we now have Zoom testimony available, so you don't have to go down to the Capitol to testify, have verbal testimony. So, Any other questions? Again, um, if you think of something, I'm on all social media channels, I think, except for I won't do X. I'm a, um, you send me a message there, or you can reach me at what am I looking for? Stop share. So actually, you know what? At this point, I'm gonna stop recording because nobody needs to hear the rest of this.